Okay, this is your last slideshow for the week, science literacy and scholarly communication. So science literacy is being well versed in all matters pertaining to basic science and scientific laws to the extent that one is able to make sound decisions concerning their well-being and the well-being of their families, communities, and society as a whole, which is based on the PDF that I uploaded to Blackboard. Access to and engaging in science, whether using knowledge or creating it, necessitates some level of familiarity with the enterprise and practices of science. Different types of science literacy are civic science literacy, practical science literacy, consumer science literacy, which may include health literacy, cultural science literacy, aesthetic science literacy, and citizen science. So the levels are society, community, and individual. So civic science literacy first is knowing enough about science to relate scientific laws and discoveries of matters of government and legislation, understanding enough about science to comprehend the likely consequences of legislation involving scientific matters. Examples are hydraulic fracturing and nuclear power. Practical science literacy is knowing enough about scientific and natural laws to make decisions about one's day-to-day life and livelihood, as opposed to government and legislation. For example, learning more about your field or career. Consumer science literacy, or health literacy, is the ability to know enough science to make sound consumer choices, whether he or she is shopping for food, medications, clothes, electronic devices, automobiles, or other items. For example, genetically modified vegetables. Cultural science literacy is scientific knowledge that is generally assumed to be possessed by someone who is culturally literate, someone familiar with the general knowledge and idioms that make up the dominant culture of his or her society. An example would be the assumption that you know what vitamins, calories, etc. are. Aesthetic science literacy is the ability to appreciate the beauty of scientific ideas, like noticing natural phenomena. Citizen science are science enthusiasts who help scientists in various disciplines conduct their research primarily by collecting data. For example, BioBlitz, Weather Spotters, or SquirrelMapper.org. So, information literacy and science literacy. How is science literacy connected to information literacy? Well, understanding the concepts of locating and evaluating information can be directly applied to understanding scientific concepts, so you can make informed decisions. Why is information literacy just as important? Well, it's important to be able to sift through all information available to us. Information literacy is a lifelong skill, not just something that you do or need while in school. So, some issues or problems you see with information literacy and science literacy are probably a lot of the issues we see having to do with evaluating sources. So evaluating what you can find is almost more important than how you search or find information. You need to ask questions. What is another perspective? What would be a counter-argument? Who have you also heard discuss this? Where are there similar concept situations? When has this played a part in our history? Why are people influenced by this? How does this benefit or harm us and others? How do we know the truth about this, and where can we get more information? Now, scholarly communication is the process in which researchers and scholars create, publish, and share their research findings. It involves the research process, publication process, and the way others access that published work to continue the cycle. So what are some ways scholars communicate besides traditional published journal articles? Well, it may be podcasts, interviews, writing blogs, holding workshops, or lectures. So popular versus scholarly sources. Popular sources such as news and magazines often report on scholarly sources. For example, the Nightly News may report on a new scientific study, which the general public probably wouldn't hear about otherwise unless they were reading the scholarly journals. This is why it is important to think about how we communicate science to others and how we inform ourselves on scientific and other matters. Science literacy. How we go about finding this information is the information literacy part. In Assessment 3, you will need to locate a news article or a popular source that reports on a scientific topic and trace backwards to the scholarly source the news piece refers to. So, This is the creation and dissemination of information. So you have the manuscript, the peer reviewers, and obviously the author. And then it goes to the publication for registration and certification. It goes to the publisher and editor, and then finally it goes to the academic library, which is called dissemination. And then it goes back to reformulation. So, for simplicity's sake, let's break the complex system of scholarship into just 4 phases. That match the way we have mostly perceived the cycle in academic libraries. Characteristics of the system are a well-established process for authors. Once a manuscript was submitted, the process was linear and formal and closely managed by publishers. Note how little of the process is controlled by the author-researcher. Dissemination and access largely are controlled by external agents, specifically by publishers and libraries. The system worked well enough to please researchers for many, many decades. Now that system is under threat from a number of forces, and change is happening fast. So, the scholarly communication system. So first, an idea is born, and then you research it and create it, and then you share it, and then we find and consume it. So think of it as an uneasy marriage between a gift economy and a market economy. It's made up of consumers and creators, which lines are being blurred between it, and stakeholders, and lines between them and within them are being blurred. So the scholarly communication is a system of systems. There's higher education, the publishing industry, disciplinary practice, scholarly societies, internet culture, research industry, IP or legal system, funders, and faculty reward system. So scholarly communication is made up of a complex set of systems working together, or at least alongside each other, to build upon previous knowledge in order to develop and create new knowledge. There are competing needs and desires and philosophies within and among these various systems. These pressures are causing some of these systems to become more rigid and less open. Here's an example of a science news cycle. So your research, conclusion is A is correlated with B, given C, assuming D and under E conditions. So it's translated by University PR Office. For immediate release, scientists find potential link between A and B under certain conditions, which is then picked up by newswire organizations. A causes B, says scientists, who are read by the internet. Scientists out to kill us again. Oh my God, I knew it. Why? And then noticed by cable news. We saw it on a blog. A causes B all the time. What will this mean for the president? Local iNews, and then the local eyewitness news, and then eventually making it to your grandma. So that's just a funny comic illustrating the science news cycle. And hold on a minute, this is... Okay. So scholarly publishing is a different odd system. Authors who are the suppliers in the system are rewarded through a separate system altogether. Two separate economies are at work here. Prices can rise freely since the suppliers or authors suffered no adverse consequence. They have new knowledge and they have promotion, tenure, and reputation. Publishers are under no pressure from suppliers to control costs since they're not paying for their product, and because of the copyright monopoly, they can charge their consumers, mostly libraries, artificial high prices due to lack of competition. They're a profit-supporting organization, and they have access to knowledge. Libraries have access to knowledge and preservation and curriculum and research needs. Okay, so let's move on to the poster project. So, notes about content. You need databases. Look through A to Z list at this link, and do not list Primo, since this searches all databases. This is a discovery search. It's not a database. EBSCO or ProQuest or Gale, these are providers of databases, so which one are you talking about? Make sure you list that. Google Scholar is okay in some cases, but it lists content that can be found in many other databases. Listing this sometimes makes it look like not much thought was put into your choices. Websites include the title and URL of websites. You can use tinyurl.com. Images and photos, be sure to provide a citation for these too. And you should have a start on books, journals, and databases by now. So the topic and content, the poster will not present much on your actual content, but in your presentation, spend a couple of minutes telling us about your topic. The poster will present sources that can be used to get or gather information on that topic. The poster will have a brief introduction on what your topic is and how you focused it to give context to the sources you choose. It will serve as a guide for someone who wants to find out more about your topic. Design tips: use PowerPoint or Google Slides. Resize a blank size to 36 wide by 24 inches long or a bit larger. And in that case, in case we decide to print it later on, as you can see in the Moon Library hall downstairs. Do landscape orientation, add text boxes, pictures, etc. Go to slideshow view to see the full-ish size. Give your poster a title and include your name on it. Try not to cover the slide too much with text. Try not to use a lot of color. Use color to enhance your content or highlight specific things. Usually dark text on light background is better and easier on the eye. And see this guide about poster designs for more information. So poster images, make your poster visually appealing by adding images or diagrams that enhance your content. Cite any images you use. I would recommend Creative Commons to search for images. In a Google image search, select Tools, then Usage Rights, and select Labeled for non-commercial reuse if you're not going to use Creative Commons. Do a citation, the image from full URL, or if the image has information on how to cite it, use that. Do not cite Google. It's just a search engine, not the actual source of the image. So the day the presentation is due, you'll project it on a screen of some sort, some way to record your voice, since this is online. And you, yourself, not a group, you yourself, this is an individual project online, will give a 10-minute presentation and turn it into Blackboard. You'll give an introduction to a topic. What is it? Why did you choose it? Why should we care about it? Describe how and why you chose certain sources in each group of sources and how they would help someone learn about your topic. Explain your choice of citation style. Discuss any problems you came across while selecting sources. Talk about any search tips you have for classmates. Be able to answer questions, and each person must speak and contribute, which obviously you have to for individual. And make sure you evaluate 5 other posters. For a reference list, you have to turn in a correctly formatted reference list of sources on your poster topic of at least 3 books, at least 3 websites, at least 3 articles from your poster. It can include other sources you discovered if you desire. You should have at least 9 sources listed. Do not list databases or whole journals. Follow correct style format and use a citation manager or generator, and make sure it's titled correctly. It's due on Wednesday, September 20th. It's due on Sunday, September 29th, not the 25th. So grading, the poster content, design, quality, and references list is 24 points. You can see the evaluation rubric in Blackboard, which is what I will use and your classmates will use to evaluate you. You're going to evaluate 5 other posters, which will be worth 1 point. This is 25% of your whole grade, and you must view at least 5 again. So remember, have fun, be creative, make this poster your own, follow basic instructions, practice presentation and rehearse questions. There is the public speaking lab in Moon Library if you want to do that. Everything has to be done by September 29th. Even if you're not no, that doesn't apply to you, but everything done by September 29th, and then evaluations and everything will be September 30th.